Hello and welcome to Baby Granddad Plays. In this video, we will be testing Fortnite Chapter 5 on the GTX 1050 Ti paired with our 4-core i7-7700 CPU with 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM. I'll throw the specs on screen so you can pause the video and have a look. Alright then, with the new update that just came out to Fortnite being Chapter 5, I wanted to take a look at how our mighty underdog, the GTX 1050 Ti, would perform. Would we need to sacrifice visuals for a decent frame rate, or could we strike a happy balance between a good looking game at decent frames? Join me as we explore those possibilities. Note that all tests were done at 1080p resolution. And before we begin, you need to know that because I'm simultaneously playing and recording on the same PC, there will be a slight performance hit on the benchmark, so just bear that in mind. So without further delay, let's get into it. Starting on the low settings, as we drop into the map, looking at the entire map, we see that we get frames between the high 50s to the low 60s, and the 1% lows going as far as 30 frames per second. As we come closer to the ground, however, we see our numbers going up because rendering the whole map at once is a bit intensive. At low settings, the game mostly stays around the mid-90s and occasionally breaks the 100 FPS mark. It does sometimes dip into the mid-80s, but for the most part it will comfortably run above 90 FPS with an average of 95 FPS and 1% lows of 49 FPS. Moving into the medium settings, while looking at the map from above, we still get between 50 and 60 FPS. Although as I got closer to the ground, I saw it go as far as 47 FPS, but it quickly climbed back up as I reached the ground. In the air, it averaged 58 FPS with 1% lows of 27 FPS. Gameplay on the ground, however, stays mostly above 60, floating between 61 and 69 FPS in the open, and when indoors, it seems to hover around the mid-70s. The lowest I've seen it drop was 58 FPS, but then again, not that often. As I said, it mostly stays above 60 FPS, but still a very decent frame if you ask me. On average, it ran at 67 FPS with 1% lows of 36 FPS. If you are finding value or are simply enjoying the video thus far, sit down and humbly ask you to hit the like button. And if you want to see more content from this channel, then we ask you that you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. Alright, cool. Lastly, let's move into the high settings. But before we proceed, be sure to turn off the nanite virtualized geometry settings, as they are ray tracing, and knowing that our little underdog here has precisely 0 RT cores, trying to run this game with this setting on will surely make your game look amazing, but it will look like you're playing PowerPoint Slideshow Simulator 2024 Deluxe Edition on a computer from the 2000s. So just keep that setting in mind if your computer is performing terribly at epic or high settings. When we look at the entire map from above, our FPS seems to hover between the 60s and high 40s, but mostly staying above 50 FPS. And again, like in the medium settings, as I got closer to the ground, it went to a low of 47 FPS, but then started picking back up again, albeit not by much compared to the medium settings. Playing on the ground, our FPS mostly stays around the mid-50s to the high 40s. With indoor scenes bringing our frames to about 63 FPS. It managed to average 53 FPS with 1% lows of 33 FPS. In fact, I was able to secure a victory crown at these settings, so all in all, not bad if you ask me in the performance department. Looking at the results, I'd say this is pretty respectable performance for the hardware combo, especially considering their age. Not only that, but the GTX 1050 Ti, being a lower tier mid-range card, I'm impressed with how well it has held up. In terms of finding a happy balance between visuals and frames like I mentioned earlier, I'd advise playing the game at medium settings and use a program like River Tuner to get the refresh rate at 60 FPS for a smooth experience. However, if you don't care much about staying above 60 all the time, then turning the settings to high will give you better visual fidelity at frames I would still call respectable for just enjoying the game. So even if you don't subscribe, leave a like, go on, I'll wait. You've made it this far, just hit the like button. Alright, that's it for this video. See you on the next one. Leave a like. Bye.